Hello and welcome back to the Idaho Legal Aid web series on eviction in Idaho for non-payment of rent. This video is part 2, and we're going to talk about what can happen during that 3-day notice and some steps that tenants can take to protect themselves while the notice is in effect. So first off, I wanted to talk about public record in Idaho. Although 3-day notices are not public record, court cases are public record in Idaho. So getting caught up on your rent before your landlord can file an eviction case is often going to be best in the long run because it means nothing will show on your public record about the situation. If you are interested in searching court records in Idaho, you can do that for free at icourt.idaho.gov. So as far as what will happen if you can't pay your rent, sometimes people run into situations in their lives where through no fault of their own, they cannot pay their rent on a given month. And so there are some options available in many communities in Idaho and statewide as far as getting help to pay that. My suggestion would be to contact 211. You can just dial that on your phone. That's the Idaho Care Line through the Department of Health and Welfare in Idaho. You can also contact livebetteridaho.gov. That's a website where you can go, put in your needs, and it'll show various community resources. Idaho Housing and Finance Association also has homeless prevention funds, though there is a process to get those, and so you would need to contact them. You can also try family members or various local churches and charities and nonprofits to try and help pay your rent within those 3 days. Typically, in order to receive funds, it has to be a viable solution. So if they pay the rent now, that you will be able to continue living there in the future by paying your rent. And also communicate with your landlord. If you can do this through text, great. Give them a call. Tell them what's going on. A lot of landlords will help try and work with you. As far as how to pay during this process, the term used is to tender payment. And what that means is to just pay the money to your landlord. That's what tender means. And so if you can pay your rent, you should. And you should pay it in a way that you can prove later. That means not using cash, using a cashier's check or money order, certified mail if there's time. A lot of landlords have online portals that you can pay your rent through, and there's some proof there. So if there is some sort of receipt printed out, anything you can do to protect yourself to show that you paid during the 3 days is going to be to your benefit. Also, make sure that you document if your landlord refuses to accept your rent in full during the 3 days. That's not to say that if you paid part of it and they refuse it, that wouldn't be okay. That would be fine. But if you go and you try and pay your rent in full to your landlord after they gave you a 3-day notice and they say, no, I just want to evict you, that doesn't work. A 3-day notice is a 3-day notice for you to correct the problem, and they have to let you correct the problem if you can. So talking about partial rent or maybe making a payment plan, like I mentioned, the 3-day notice is a notice to pay rent in full. So your landlord does not have to accept the partial rent, but if they are willing to accept it and maybe make a payment plan, the more detail that you can provide the landlord, the better. I think it's more likely for them to accept it if you provide more detail. So if you do make a payment plan, make sure it's documented in writing and preferably signed by both you and the landlord if possible. And again, documenting your communication with your landlord is going to protect you, text message, things like that. Finally, I wanted to talk about how in Idaho, tenants cannot withhold rent when a landlord is not making necessary repairs to the property. The code section here is Idaho Code 6-320. That lays out the repair request process. And while landlords absolutely have to provide a habitable living space in Idaho, tenants cannot withhold their rent to force the landlord to do that. Similar to how landlords have to follow the eviction process to remove a tenant, tenants must follow the repair request process. And that too includes a 3-day notice to the landlord. It talks about the filing that needs to happen. Another topic for another video for sure. But to be clear, tenants cannot withhold rent for repairs in Idaho. If you'd like more information about this, you can visit idaholegalaid.org. Under our housing topics, there is a brochure about repairs that walks you through the process. The Court Assistance Office in Idaho also has a packet that you can get that has a sample demand letter and everything you'll need to take care of that situation.